How much will Bitcoin be worth by the end of the year? Will we hit new all-time highs? Will it last if we do? These are questions as old as the stars and as important as knowing how many drops of water are in the ocean. That being said, I think the real question is, will the price of Bitcoin be higher or lower by the end of the year? Well, I've got an opinion on that, and I'm going to share some charts and fundamental reasons with you as to why I believe that Bitcoin could end the year quite a bit higher than it is now, potentially even cracking a new all-time high. And of course, if Bitcoin goes higher, then that is good for the rest of the cryptocurrency market, because the old orange guy has a habit of dragging the rest of the market along with it. My name is Lark, and this is where you subscribe for all of the hottest and all of the latest happening out here in the wild land of crypto. By the way, members of the Wealth Mastery newsletter will have received issue number 11 today. In this issue, I discuss just when to cut a losing position. I also have a few new hot token sales to keep an eye on. The guys from Matic join us to discuss how they are enabling Layer 2 DeFi to come to life. Heidi has some very important and practical tips about preserving your privacy when using cryptocurrency. Forrest has an absolutely awesome report comparing Chainlink, Telor, and Band. DeFi Dad has a very sneaky little Ethereum yield hack for you. Jesse has got a review on the Polkadot player Staffy and examines if it is actually worth all of the hype, or is it just a bunch of hot air. And Rect Capital has some very important Bitcoin analysis on why this current rally could be nothing more than a short-lived relief rally. All of that and much, much more for less than $10 a week. This is a fantastic value for an investor report. So let me and my team save your time and help keep you ahead of the curve in this fast-moving market. There's a link in the description where you can learn more about becoming a member to Wealth Mastery. Okay, so with all that being said, let's talk about Bitcoin. First, let's start off with this little teaser. Today is September 17th. In 2017, the price of Bitcoin went from around $3,700 on September 17th all the way up to $20,000 in 90 days on December 17th for an insane 429% gain. So let's just establish the fact here that the price of Bitcoin can move very high very, very fast. And you may say, but Lark, that's not fair, because the current price of Bitcoin is $11,000, not $3,700. Okay then, sure, fine. Look, in 2017, it only took 14 days for the price of Bitcoin to go from $11,000 to $20,000. So yeah, when the honey badger wants to break out, no one can stop it. Now I want to look at some on-chain data that I think is really important to have in your mind as we go through this conversation, because this is what is supporting the price. The number of Bitcoin addresses holding one or more Bitcoin has increased exponentially since, well, basically the birth of Bitcoin, and it has been on a continual uptrend. In fact, just this year, we have added 40,000 more addresses holding one or more Bitcoin, bringing our total up to around like 820,000 addresses holding one Bitcoin or more. And looking at the demand for Bitcoin, buyers have been just gobbling up Bitcoin under $10,000 recently, so there's a very strong demand. So these 820,000 addresses, they're not selling. This Bitcoin is largely in the hands of strong holders who are here for the long run and will continue adding on dips. This means they're waiting to sell higher. Another chart reinforcing that holders are not planning to sell for a measly $11,000. Come on, $11,000 is the HODL Waves chart. Now, everything from the yellow line up on this chart, about 70% of the total supply, has been sitting in addresses that have been holding for a year or more. Some of these have held for 3, 4, 5 years. These guys aren't selling for $11,000. They're exiting fiat. And now you might say, but Lark, come on, man. Don't be too damn bullish. Bring it down, son. Well, yes, there are a few things that could totally derail the bullish momentum of the entire cryptocurrency market. Of course, we could be facing a massive global depression 2.0. This is possible, yes. The US presidential elections could be a wild card causing all sorts of unexpected drama. This is possible, yes. The stock markets, they could crash super hard. So yes, that's also possible. And of course, considering the correlation of Bitcoin to the stock markets, this would obviously mean that Bitcoin will crash and burn too. So, these are all things worth keeping in mind. But for all of these scenarios, honestly, I don't see any of them as super high probability of happening, at least not in the worst ways that many fears. Maybe we get some significant corrections in the stock market. Maybe the economy will, be stagnant for a while, but it's not going to be as dramatic as people think. Quite the opposite, in fact, I think, for the markets. I believe we actually have some incredible catalysts that are slowly but surely pushing Bitcoin higher. The first big one is companies buying Bitcoin. This cannot be understated how big this is. Now, the last bull run was led by retail buyers. The retail buyers, they're not really here yet. I mean, the herd, they're starting to come in a little bit. It's a little bit of a trickle, but they haven't really shown up in a meaningful way. And the retail herd, they will come back as well. But right now we have companies buying Bitcoin. Institutional players are leading this Bitcoin bull market. They have been the biggest buyers in terms of total volumes bought. It's been crazy. This week, MicroStrategy bought another $175 million of the Bitcoin. That is the equivalent of 350,000 retail investors buying $500 worth of Bitcoin. That's just one player, one of their purchases. They bought more a few weeks ago. Just wait until Square or Apple or some other company puts 1% of their cash reserves into Bitcoin. I predict that by the end of the year, we will see another big company announce a strategic Bitcoin purchase. It's coming, so it's just a question of when, not if. The second fundamental factor driving Bitcoin higher is actually DeFi. Now, this is for two reasons. One is that Bitcoin is in actually really high demand as collateral in DeFi to earn yield. And the second is that as the DeFi altcoin boom continues, it means that investors are making loads of money. And inevitably, that money flows back into Bitcoin. A thriving altcoin market is good for Bitcoin. The third reason is, of course, the Bitcoin halving. We are now 4 months past the Bitcoin halving. Grayscale and MicroStrategy together have basically bought more Bitcoin than has been mined in the last 4 months. So they're outstripping the new supply generated right now. 20,000 new addresses holding one or more Bitcoin since the halving. That is an incredible amount of extra Bitcoin being bought by mostly retail buyers. Almost 100,000 Bitcoin locked up in DeFi since the halving. We are seeing a record increase in demand for Bitcoin at the same time that the daily production of Bitcoin has been cut in half. Miners, yes, they still have decent stockpiles, but that's not always going to be the case. So scarcity is really coming in right now. And the fourth fundamental reason that Bitcoin is going to continue going up this year is that the Federal Reserve has just committed to keeping rates near zero and inflation targeted over 2%. Now, it's probably the last meeting the Federal Reserve is going to have for this year. So that's the policy, man. That's where we're going. Bitcoin will become increasingly popular with the macro investor crowd under this scenario. It's already starting to become popular. It's going to become more popular. So that's all the fundamental stuff. Now strap in for the Hopium. We got the good stuff here. And to be clear, not I nor anyone else really knows what the price of Bitcoin will be at the end of the year or any other time in the future. But we sure can speculate for the fun of it, can't we? So let's start off with the Bitcoin stock to flow model. According to the model, we could see Bitcoin at $25,000 by the end of the year. That, of course, does not mean it's actually going to reach $25,000, but that is the prediction from the model. It is highly possible, though, that we could peak potentially at $25,000, considering all the factors that I mentioned above here. It only takes, one big company to buy 1% of the Bitcoin, and we are off to the races. You can also see here in the previous cycle, the price of Bitcoin strongly respected the blue line on the Bitcoin stock to flow chart during the post-halving phase. By the way, a $25,000 Bitcoin by the end of the year would be a 129% increase from the current price. Remember, Bitcoin did 429% in 90 days in 2017 and 80% in 14 days in 2017 as well. So it's totally possible to see that kind of move from Bitcoin. But is that the most realistic scenario? I'm not really so sure. I think a more likely scenario is that we only briefly peak just a little bit above $20,000 by the end of the year. We're going to get a new technical all-time high this year. I think that's very, very possible. After the 2016 Bitcoin halving, though, it did take 179 days to break that previous all-time high. We're currently 128 days out from the Bitcoin halving in 2020, meaning that if there's any kind of rhyme to this, we could easily see Bitcoin reach a new high in the next 6 to 12 weeks. But do take note that there was a 37% correction that dropped just after Bitcoin reclaimed its previous highs in 2016. I would expect something similar to happen, maybe not as dramatic, but quite similar to happen this time around. Why is that going to happen? Well, the reason is quite simple. A lot of holders, they're going to take profits. They're watching for that level. Traders are watching for that level. That's the high watermark. They're going to sell there. So where does that leave us for the end of the year? Well, quite possibly around potentially $16,000, which is a historically very important price point for Bitcoin. It would actually be a 20% retracement from the $20,000 mark. That, of course, assumes that Bitcoin is even able to break 16,000 on the way up. That's a very strong level of resistance. But yes, I'm going to plant my flag and say that Bitcoin will see a new all-time high this year. But I don't think it's going to last super long. We are going to see a big retrace after that happens as sellers take profits. That being said, late 2021 is when we're going to get that $100,000 Bitcoin. But that's another video for another day. Anyway, those are just my 2 Satoshis. Your question for the day. What do you think the price of Bitcoin is going to be on December 31st this year? Let me know down below in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching today's video. Hope you're having a frickin' fantastic day. Long live the blockchain, and peace out till next time.